Hey guys, Marsingin here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to do the LR EZA team building guide for the INT LR cell. Now, just like the Gohan one, these guys lead the opposing categories, so it's going to come down to you deciding which one of these EZAs that you want to do first, and then obviously it's going to make it easier to do the secondary one once you've EZA'd the first character. So I'm obviously doing team building guides for both the EZAs, so your best bet is probably just going to be watch both the videos, build your teams, decide which one you think is going to be the easiest, do that one first, and then obviously EZA that unit and then use them in the secondary one, because as you can obviously guess from that intro, the category for this Z battle is Kamehameha. So Kamehameha is a pretty big category with a lot of very solid options on it. As always with my team building guides, I'm going to go through my top picks and honourable mentions. However, Kamehameha is a huge category, so obviously I'm not going to go over as many units. I do this sometimes with these categories that just have way too many options, where I will primarily be going over the top picks, but without as many honourable mentions as usual. Because the other thing you have to remember about an LR EZA is that there's no typing that gets damage reduction. However, you do want to prioritise LRs, because having the Link legendary power active is what enables the units to do more damage. Now, it is possible to complete LR EZAs with a full team of TURs. I've done it in the past. It just takes longer because you do less damage, so you do want to prioritize as many LRs as possible. So like I said, I'm going to go through my top picks. There are a few honorable mentions. There definitely are some TURs. We're not just going to talk about LRs, but as always with these guides, if there's any units that I didn't mention that you think I should have talked about that will be very useful in the event, let me know down below in the comment section. And of course, if you do find the guide helpful at all, do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So like I said in the intro already, we have Gohan is the leader for Kamehameha. Now, if you haven't EZA'd him, if you want to do the Cell 1 first, he could still be a solid leader. Like, he's obviously aged a little bit in terms of the hardest content in the game at the moment. But if you have to use him as a leader for the team, he's still going to be relatively decent. Like, when you get to the last stages, maybe he's going to take a lot of damage from a super attack, like pre-EZA. But if he's the only choice you have for a Kamehameha leader, then he still is going to be pretty good. And overall, he's solid, right? He has a really good link set with a lot of the other units that we're potentially going to use on the team. So even if he's not the best pre-EZA, he's still another LR that fits on the team, is in the right category, obviously going to activate legendary power, and has good links with other units. So you can use Gohan. And then of course, if you did Gohan's Extreme Z battle first, then he's probably going to be the better leader to go for, since he gives everyone on the category 180%. And of course, post EZA, I mean, he's looking at potentially being one of the best units in the game. So if you've done Gohan's one first, then obviously you're just going to use Gohan as the leader. Or even if you're using a different combination because of the units you have, you're probably going to be running Gohan on the team if you have him. So next up we have these guys. They are a Kamehameha leader as well as Goku family. 4 key HP attack and defense 150. 150 is definitely a good enough leader skill for doing an EZA. Obviously they are type disadvantaged though, so in the later stages they're potentially going to take a lot of damage from a super. They do get a lot of defense on super attack. They do get that additional super when their key is 20 or more. So another unit like the Anniversary LRs that gets a guaranteed additional super, unlike Beastless Gohan. But these guys would potentially still be pretty good. If you have them at 55%, obviously not as much. A tech unit, they do get free level 5 crit, but you're ideally going to want them to be critting regularly, getting additionals, like getting all these extra supers for the extra defense, and then they potentially are going to be very good. They're one of these units that shares a lot of links with the Gohan and other Super Saiyan Gokus, so they will fit into the team very nicely. They have an active skill, but you can't use it until turn 7, so you're probably not ever going to see this. Well, turn 5 if you're at 58% or less HP, but even in the later stages you're probably not going to get to that point, right? But they could be useful on the team, and they definitely can be a good stand-in leader. So next we have Gohan himself. Now he leads superheroes or hybrid Saiyans with the bond of parent and child and movie heroes as the extra 30%. You very easily can make a full Kamehameha team out of superheroes and hybrid Saiyans. and a lot of them will be under the full 200% as well. So this guy could actually end up being one of the better leaders for the event, as well as being a very good unit for the event itself, because whilst he obviously does have his own issues with his links and his key and everything, of course he is an LR that is on the Kamehameha category and is physical. So on his best turns, we already know that this guy can look really, really good. So he can potentially put out a ton of damage in this event. And if you are building the team with superheroes allies, on turn 3 with a full superheroes rotation, you can use the active skill. And whilst a lot of people are disappointed in the overall power of the active skill, especially if you are using it early before his passive is fully built up, in an EZA, you probably are very often going to be able to use his active skill actually as the finishing blow. So I do think this Gohan will actually be very, very good in this EZA, whether it's as the leader, building a team around his leader skill, or just on the team in general. So his links might suffer if you're not building the team around him for getting like key, but he will still be very, very good in this event. Next up we have the Carnival Goku. So he's another unit that has type disadvantage, however we know he has guard unless you're below the HP requirement. And then of course, as long as you're only running one of them on the team, once he revives, he has permanent guard then anyway. So he's a unit that will be very good defensively, and even though he's tech, you put him in slot 1 where he's guarding, and then when he gets hit before he attacks, he becomes attacks effective against all types. So then it gets around the fact that he is type disadvantage. So he is actually a very, very good unit, probably a top pick for the team. I wouldn't use him as a leader. Powerful comeback. You can make a full Kamehameha team, but running 2 Carnival Gokus is always kind of annoying, and it is a little bit restrictive. So I personally wouldn't run him as a leader and run the actual powerful comeback team. But whichever leader you are going to use, this guy would easily be the next unit you put on the team, right? He's definitely going to be super, super good for this event. It's just a couple, like, it's ironic that he's a tech unit, but I mean, he guards and can be effective against all types, so where it counts, he's basically not a tech unit. So very, very good option for the event, and if you are finding the later stages difficult, the revive can be super useful as well. So next up we have Super Saiyan Goku and Gohan. The first non-LR unit that we're going to mention, mainly because of their leader skill, right? So Super Saiyans or Goku family with Android/Cell Saga is the extra 30%. So units like the LR Gohan, the Tech LR Goku and Gohan that we already showed, they get the 200% leader skill from these guys. Units like Carnival Goku will obviously be on this team. These guys have benefited quite a lot from some better slot 1 units releasing recently, so they can sit nicely in slot 2. Goku does reasonable damage, especially if he gets 1 or 2 of those dodges off. His passive builds up quite nicely. You're very unlikely to see Gohan come out, because even if you double super on turn 1 or 2, it means you can't transform until turn 5, and by then EZAs are usually over with. So this guy really is only on the list for being a really good stand-in leader, because obviously not being an LR, he doesn't benefit towards having the full legendary power rotation and everything, but he definitely makes a good lead that covers a lot of the units that we've talked about and gives some of them the 200% as well. So certainly can be very, very useful for this EZA. Next up we have both of the anniversary LRs. So both of these guys, like Power Beyond Super Saiyan or Movie Heroes, very easy to make a full Kamehameha team, obviously, right? Because they have Kamehameha as their extra 30%. So it's very easy to make a full team with them that has the 200% leader skill and is getting, obviously, the buff because they're on Kamehameha. So these guys are really good. Despite being tech, obviously they guard in slot 1. If you're bringing a powerful enough team, chances are by the time you get to turn 3 and they don't have their guard anymore, you're potentially going to be winning on that turn anyway. So definitely not going to be as much of a liability. You can transform on turn 4 if you get there, and then turn 4, that turn's probably going to be the last turn, especially if you are transforming. With the Super Saiyan 4s, it's a little bit different. Fused Fighters, obviously, that you can make a full Kamehameha team. Fused Fighters and GT Heroes mix. You can make a full Kamehameha team very easily. Not as many LRs that are like top tier. but you can make a full team. As I said at the beginning, you know, you don't have to use full LR teams. It just takes a little bit longer. And then these guys benefit from having type advantage. So after the first turn, when their guard has run out, they still are obviously going to be very, very good defensively. So both the 7-year anniversary LRs will be very useful for this event as well. Then we have Super Saiyan 4 Goku. So Goku leads Goku family for 180, which of course, you know, all Kamehameha characters almost are Goku family, right? I think there's the odd like Trunks that has it as well, but Goku family is going to cover basically all the Kamehameha units with a 180 leader skill. So depending on the leaders that you have available, that might be a little bit higher for some of those units that aren't getting a 200% from some of the other characters. So he can be very good. He's also worthwhile considering if you are bringing the anniversary LR Super Saiyan 4s, because then obviously he goes super well with them, shares a ton of links. He can still look impressive from a damage perspective. I still see turns of this guy putting out like well over 10 million attack stat when linked with the Super Saiyan 4s. His defense just is the thing that hasn't aged the best for like red zone bosses and stuff, but EZAs are nowhere near that level of difficulty, so he's definitely a worthwhile consideration for the team. Then we have this guy, good free-to-play option. I mean, as a worst-case scenario, as a free-to-play player, you could use him as a leader, right? All types 3 key and 59%. Not the best leader skill, but if that's all you've got to work with, then that's all you've got to work with. But even for a full, like, you know, summonable units team, or someone who has every unit in the game, he could still be very useful because he's got type advantage. He's obviously on the category and is an LR, so he's going to be helping to activate legendary power, and he's providing support to everybody else, right? He's giving all allies 2 key and attack and defense 30%, so that's going to allow all of those units on the rotation with him to hit even harder. And just make those last couple of stages maybe that little bit easier by having all of your top units doing that little bit of extra damage, as well as having a little bit of extra defense. So I think this guy's absolutely worthwhile bringing as a floating support unit, regardless of what build of the team you are using, because he fits under most of the units that we've talked about so far as leader skills. Doesn't fit under the anniversary LRs, but he definitely fits on any sort of straight up Kamehameha or Goku family build, so he can be very, very good. Then we have the LR Gogeta, the 3-year EZA. They've started to age a little bit, but for an EZA, especially where they have type advantage, these guys will be very useful. You're probably never going to see their heal because you're not very likely to get to turn 6, but they're still pretty good in base, right? They have a 30% chance to dodge. They get extra key from rainbow orbs, so sometimes it can be quite easy to get their 18 key super as long as there are some rainbow orbs available. And they're able to do pretty reasonable damage. They're just a very solid unit, and again, they fit under a lot of units we've talked about so far. If they don't have straight up Kamehameha, they've got either like Super Saiyans or Fused Fighters or Movie Heroes, so these guys fit in perfectly very well. Then we have these two units, the combo, or you can use, you know, them by themselves, but the AGL and the STR UI Goku. Obviously, defensively, they can be very good with the 70% chance to dodge. They could obviously let you down, and in the later stages, if they eat a super, they might take a bit of damage, but otherwise they could definitely be very, very good. If you have 50% or more HP on turn 4, you can use this guy's active skill, which on turn 4 very likely is going to be a finishing move, so certainly very useful. And the STR one, obviously very good as well. The STR one needs to dodge more to get his full build up, so if you're running the two of them, usually you put the STR one in slot 1 or wherever the most attacks are, but then the combo of these two together can work really, really well together, so definitely worthwhile considering them. Then we have this LR Kaioken Goku from the part 2 of the anniversary. His links are a bit off compared to some of the other units. Obviously, he's not a Super Saiyan, he's not a movie hero, any of those kind of things. We're not fighting a Vegeta enemy, so he's not getting his full buff. But he is a very, very strong unit, right? He can put out some pretty crazy attack stats. He can be a very solid option for the team. I would probably run him mostly as, like, the last unit, right? Like, if I've picked my first 5 and I don't really know who to bring as the last one, this Goku definitely can be a perfect slot filler. He's not a top pick, I wouldn't say, but definitely very, very good for the team. Then we have these guys. If you're on JP, the Hachiak movie, technically it's just Goku, but the Goku, Gohan, Trunks, Vegeta, and Piccolo, they are on Kamehameha. They are a support unit. They have damage reduction. Like these guys, kind of like the version Z Goku, are just a really, really good addition to the team as a support unit. Plus, they also fit in really well links-wise with everybody else as well. So you very much could just run them on main rotation. They certainly are a very solid unit. But unfortunately, for the time being, JP only. So next up we have Super Saiyan 2 Goku that transforms into Super Saiyan 3. You know, at one point, one of the hardest hitting TURs, considering he is physical and is on the category. Despite the fact that he's not an LR, he could potentially put out quite a lot of damage, especially if you actually are able to get him to transform. Turn 3, you have to be on 77% or less HP. I could very much see instances where in the later stages on turn 3 you've lost enough HP to transform this guy, and then even without having legendary power he's going to be able to do a decent chunk of damage as the Super Saiyan 3 Goku, bearing in mind that he actually gets off a bunch of those additional supers, and then he could be looking really, really solid. Next up we have this guy. I would actually recommend probably running this guy if you have him, if he fits into the build of your team, which he's probably going to, right? Let's be fair. Almost every unit we've talked about so far is Goku family. It's only the units that are like Goku and Vegeta, like the Anniversary LRs, the Battle of Wits, Carnival Goku for JP. Everybody else is going to be a Goku family unit. And this guy gives Goku family allies 2 key and 40% attack and defense. And he has type advantage, so even though he's not an LR, like he can build up to decent defense. His damage will be okay, but he's going to be significantly buffing everybody else on the rotation, which I think makes him a worthwhile unit to consider bringing. Next up we have Super Saiyan 4 Vegito. So he's kind of the same thing, right? Like especially if you're bringing the LR Super Saiyan 4s and God Goku like rotation, this guy would be really, really good. He's providing them with a little bit of support. He's got type advantage. He can counter super attacks, which could be pretty useful, and is just another type advantage unit to bring on the team. I would probably only run him if you are running the LR Super Saiyan 4s and or God Goku, because if you only have one, you could run this guy as their rotation partner, and they would work pretty well together. So he's worthwhile considering, but only if you're bringing the other Super Saiyan 4s. Then we have this Gohan. I thought he would be worth mentioning as a support unit, because he has 35% support to all allies. He has a medium chance to dodge once he's performed 3 supers, which is not really going to happen unless you get to like turn 5, which again very unlikely, but provides some good support as type advantage, so he's definitely not going to get absolutely crushed, and he provides that nice bit of a buff to everybody else. And then last but not least, as an honourable mention, physical Vegito Blue. So whilst not being an LR, he can obviously have those turns where he shoots out multiple additional super attacks. Then he can counter normal attacks as well. So if you're getting like a bunch of supers and then a bunch of crit counters, even though he's not an LR, he's going to be doing quite a lot of damage. So, if we go back to the Kamehameha list, I don't think there's anyone we particularly... I guess I didn't talk about Goten and Trunks. They are a Kamehameha leader and they are physical. They're just kind of awkward with the way they work on the team. You need other other Goten and Trunkses or a Krillin to really get their full potential. And they're certainly not the best unit, but they definitely could be used. Gohan and Krillin are decent. They don't fit Link super well with a lot of the other units. They don't fit under a lot of the leader skills of the units that we've talked about, unless you're running a straight up Kamehameha team, but they certainly could be useful. A lot of the tech LRs, if they're not having guard, are not going to be super useful. You're not likely to get to fuse with the tech Gogeta. Namek Goku actually is a pretty solid option. I should have mentioned Namek Goku because he leads Super Saiyans. He can be a really good leader. If he gets hit in slot 1, he gets that guaranteed additional super, so he could be really good. The INT Vegito, we already talked about the Gogeta. These guys are just the opposite counterpart. They can still be very good. I would say Gogeta slightly better in this event alone, just because you're never going to fuse, and so in the unfused state, having a unit with type advantage is probably slightly more beneficial. STR Vegito, again, you might be able to get the fusion on like the final turn, but these guys could be quite useful. They're still useful in their base, even though they've started to age a little bit. And then like the physical blue boys, their links are going to be really bad on this team, but if you're lucky with getting a lot of rainbow orbs, which they get a lot of extra key from and then do a bunch of additional attacks, they could be quite useful. And then obviously there's just a whole sea of TURs that we could talk about. I tried to pick out some of the better like physical ones, but obviously this category is still very, very large. I mean, if you're on JP, Yamcha is on here. He's obviously very good. There's a lot of heroes units on here. I would be tempted to do like a full heroes build, but obviously with LR EZAs, whilst you can do them with full TUR teams, it probably is still much easier and faster to use a full LR team. So let me know what you guys think down below. Like I said at the beginning, if there's any units you think I should have highlighted a bit more that I didn't, let me know in the comment section, and let me know down below what your team build is going to look like for the Cell Extreme Z battle. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.